Let's do a spoiler-filled review of the new Fantastic Four movie. Thank you. Welcome back to John's Comics with Friends. I did not break anything in that quick change. And if you did not see the unboxing of that awesome Doctor Doom mask that my friend made for me, you should check it out. And it's titled, What Did My Friend Tony Send Me? You should check that out. But let's talk about Fantastic Four. I was busy with San Diego Comic-Con all weekend, but I was so exhausted, but I didn't want to miss this movie because I've been hearing some really great things. So I came back early on Saturday from the con. I asked the family if they wanted to go. Everybody said yes. We ate dinner. We plowed over there and we saw an 8 o'clock showing. Gang, this was a lot of fun. And the word that came to mind for me most often, especially in the first, I don't know, 45 minutes of the movie, was charming. This was a very charming movie. Obviously, the second half is a little more intense and it has some of the more emotionally heavy sequences, but it's all predicated on this charming first half of the movie. I really, really enjoyed this. Now, I've seen reviews that fell somewhere between either this is one of my 5 favorite Marvel movies of all time versus this was kind of a mid movie, average movie. So something in that 7 out of 10 to 5 out of 10 range. I've seen a little bit of a disparity, but it seems like, and maybe you guys can let me know what you've seen, most people are very happy about this film, and it seems to be falling for most people in an 8 out of 10 range. And that was definitely my experience. And a lot of people want to compare it to Superman. And all I've got to say to that is what a great summer we're having, where the conversations are not this part drove me crazy. I hate this actor. This movie did not get it right, whatever. Instead, we've got Thunderbolts, Superman, and now this movie. And in every case, we have an enthusiasm, right? People are excited to go read their books and to talk about them and to see these characters on screen. That's the juice here for me. That was the biggest takeaway. But let's get into some of the nitty gritty. Obviously, I was not a hater from the casting standpoint when they announced these actors. I knew all of them to be very talented in their own rights, and I knew that they could bring something to this movie. But I also felt the same way about the Miles Teller, Michael B. Jordan group. Those were all very talented actors, and it has nothing to do necessarily with the skill of those performers. It's the script, right? It's the story. It's the direction that they take with it. In this case, these actors are given a lot to do. In fact, every single one of them has some very strong, heavy emotional beats that they get to hit, whether that's Galactus even, or whether it's the individual members of the FF, or even some of the great cameos like we got with Mole Man. I think everybody had something to bring to the table, and I think that made this movie very functional and enjoyable. I will say my family was split on their feelings about the aesthetic of the film. There's this funny, like, future retro vibe that the movie has going for it, where it's almost a Jetsons, kind of a thing that's going on here. I dig it. I really dig it. And for me, it perfectly blends the origin of these comics and these characters from the Lee and Kirby days with where we are now, and the Hickman book that maybe semi-inspired some of this. So for me, the visual aesthetic, right? The set decorations, the production designs, the look of this worked, and I was really into it. But I also can understand people that didn't catch the vibe with it and were bothered by, Herbie the robot or whatever. Spoiler, I loved Herbie. I thought Herbie was fantastic. I also like that every actor's all the characters seemed useful, right? What Ben brings to the team, what Johnny, which is rarely seen, I think, in the comics and movies, brings to the team, what Reed obviously brings most often to the team, and then in a big way, what Sue gets to do here, which she never really got to do in the early Kirby Lee days, is be a vital part of this crew and prove their value on a level that's not just, I don't want to say eye candy, but in some cases that seemed to be the way that the character was written, because I think they thought the audience for their comic was going to be boys and they didn't want to make a girl a focus, right? So this movie really fixes a lot of that, and I think it makes it work. The best performance, this is a tricky thing. I love Pedro Pascal. I think he won me over on a character that I can't stand. I usually can't stand Reed Richards. He drives me crazy. He is so like disconnected from reality sometimes, and he can be so cold and he can be so awful sometimes. Some writers have really blown it when it came to that character. And I think what Pedro Pascal is he's able to blend some of these things together and give us this wonderful amalgam of all these other Reed Richards. And I cared about him and I cared about what he was going through and I cared about the challenges he was facing and his emotional beats were honest. He still had some of that, maybe I'm on the spectrum and it's hard for me to connect emotionally to certain things, but my mind is working on problem solving and all that great Reed Richards stuff he still had, but it made it sympathetic. And I think that is what I would say made his performance probably my favorite of all of them. I mentioned the Mole Man cameo. I think it's great. I think they used the Mole Man as a character beautifully. The retro stuff at the beginning, where you see the saving the city over the last few years, really, really well done. But then his cameo came full circle at the end when he got to come back. I loved all of that. That was really, really well done. Um, Gang, let's talk Galactus and the Silver Surfer. I think the biggest takeaway from my kids, and I might do a kid review for these movies, Superman and Fantastic Four eventually, but they were coming out of there saying the Silver Surfer was phenomenal, and they loved Shia LaBeouf, and they thought that she was done really, really well in the film, and I totally agree. They gave her the original Silver Surfer arc, and I understand people being upset because they wanted to see it maybe from the actual Silver Surfer, the original. I can understand that, but I also feel like they wanted to distance themselves from all these iterations that had come before and to do something original and to do something that was true to the source material, but that it was its own, right? And I think they navigated that challenge very, very effectively with that character. And then Galactus Gang is perfect. I'm sorry if you wanted more from this or you didn't care for this is exactly what when my oldest was sitting next to me and we saw him on screen for the first time, she turned to me, she's like, "Oh my God, he's huge." And I said, "Yes, that's the point. Galactus should be just absolutely magnificent, right? Just enormous." And he is given that space. I was a little worried with some of the early shots in the trailers that maybe they weren't going to pull it off. But gang, I'm here to say they nailed it. I loved the way it worked. I loved the twists at the end, the way he outsmarted their plan, but then they had to come up with a new plan on the fly. All of that stuff worked for me. The conclusion worked for me. Johnny almost doing the sacrificial moment almost worked for really worked for me. And then of course Shia LaBeouf coming in, all those pieces clicked. The emotional beats clicked, and then at the center of all of it, Franklin, gang. I don't own a ton of Fantastic Four comics, but I do own his first appearance, Annihilus, right? That annual. I love that Franklin is vital to the story. He's just a baby, but he plays such a great part, both to bring the family together, but then to be the crux of how they catch the villain or why Galactus might want to come to our planet. It all worked. And as an X-Men fan, Franklin's a mutant first and foremost in my mind. So I love the way that they're setting up his ability here this early. So all of that stuff worked for me. As far as the other FF characters, Johnny Storm wasn't as annoying as he usually is. I think they did a great job with balancing that out. This is the first time they've given Ben Grimm a gentle side. He loved the way that he was always talking about his love for food and the way that he's the one rushing to help the delivery of the baby, and that he's got this like lovable uncle grandfather thing going that really was so well executed. And then the ongoing joke about clobbering time, they crushed it. They absolutely crushed it. And then lastly, Sue Storm, arguably my favorite member of the team, because from the comics, her powers always seemed underutilized, but the most powerful of them all. And to see her be the one to ultimately push Galactus out of our planet, I loved that. I thought that was really well done. Vanessa Kirby is a very talented actress, and I thought she just really did a great job. Again, I think all the actors given some really great moments. So That's my biggest takeaway. I think I came out feeling like it's an 8.5, which I think on retrospect is probably where the Superman film came out in the end for me. I want to see both of them again. I tend to really solidify my thinking on a second viewing, but I just came out happy with a big smile on my face, listening to my girls and my wife discussing all the movie and all the different things they liked or there were questions that they had. Those conversations are so filled with joy for me. And that drive home was just an absolute blast. So the fact that this movie gave me all of that, that's the juice. That's the juice. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I didn't get into every little spoiler detail, but those are my big thoughts, my big moments that I think I'm sure I'll do a live stream at some point talking about these amazing summer movies. Because again, gang, superhero movies crushed it in 2025. I don't I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. These 3 summer movies really, really brought it home. Thunderbolts, Superman, and now FF. But leave me your comments, leave me your thoughts. As always, I appreciate it. And let's take a look at the channel members because, gang, I was just at San Diego Comic-Con, and somebody on this list is going to win my monthly giveaway, and that person's going to get a comic from San Diego Comic-Con that I got there, a cool variant. You can become a channel member, sign up as long as you're in before the end of the month, which is just a few days away. You can get a shot to win the end of the month giveaway. I'll probably be doing a live stream over the weekend once we get into August, and we'll spin all the wheels and give the things away. But the best thing you can do, hit the like, leave a comment, subscribe even, and hang out with us in our live streams because I'm usually going live at least once a week. So I appreciate all of you coming by and hanging out and having a little laugh. And let me know, what are your thoughts on FF?